Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It was on last Wednesday when the country first heard about the Agnipath program, a 4-year stint in the armed forces, an opportunity to serve your nation and also an opportunity to pursue your career at the end of those 4 years. The blowback has been immense since then. Widespread protests, violence and arson was witnessed across the country, especially in Bihar. The opposition has been adamant on a rollback of the scheme. The Congress party even hit the streets in protest here in the national capital. But the opposition seems to have forgotten the issue at hand. For them, this seemed to be just another issue to target the Prime Minister and the Modi government. What else would explain the comments that are outrightly insulting of your armed forces? Are men and women in uniform who don no political color, follow no ideology other than serving this country that is motherland to them and each one of us. And they've been dragged into this politics by the opposition. Listen in to the comments that are not only provocative but also slander our forces.
देखो अग्निपथ ये तो 46,000 युवकों को वो क्या करके आरएसएस में लाना चाहते हैं मुझे तो मालूम नहीं। कभी आपने सुना है क्या किसी देश में ऐसा हुआ है कि 4 साल ट्रेनिंग देना और छोड़ देना? यहाँ पर तो परमानेंट वैकेंसीज हैं। युवकों का जो आज हर जगह एजिटेटेड है तो उनको अलग निकालने के लिए, उनका दिशा भटकाने के लिए ये काम कर रहे हैं।
ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಜಿ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಲ್ಲ, ನಾವಿನ್ನೂ ಹುಟ್ಟಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಆಗ. ಆ ನಾಜಿ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯ ನಡೆದಾಗ ಹಿಟ್ಲರ್ದು ಆಗ್ಲೇ ತಾನೇ ಇದು ಉದ್ಭವ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಈ RSS. ಅದನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಅಗ್ನಿಪಥ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೆಸರನ್ನ ಅಗ್ನಿವೀರನ್ನ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೊರಟಿರೋದು.
Former union minister and a leader who's a close aide of the Gandhi Parivar went one step too far and likened the Prime Minister to Hitler and warned him of having a Hitler-like death. What's worse, it's when Times Now confronted him, he justified it. No apology, no remorse from Subodh Kant Sahai, who dismissed the comment as a metaphor. Listen in to Subodh Kant Sahai.
मुझे तो लगता है कि हिटलर का सारा इतिहास इसने पार कर लिया। हुडा साहब बड़े गांव की भाषा में समझा रहे थे। हिटलर ने भी ऐसा ही एक संस्था बनाया था, उसका नाम था खाकी। सेना के बीच में उसने बनाया था। मोदी हिटलर की राह चलेगा तो हिटलर की मौत मरेगा, ये याद रख लो मोदी।
ये कहावत कही जाती है जो डिक्टेटरशिप के बारे में कहा जाता है और सारे जनता मूल्यों का नाश हो रहा है, इसलिए ये कहावत कहा है हमने।
Well, the Congress Party's communication department chief Jairam Ramesh has distanced himself and the party from this, but yet no action on anybody, not the one that took place last week or today. The Congress's track record as far as using vile language is not without stain. Right from Sonia Gandhi's Maut Ka Saudagar way back in 2007, her party has been taking cues to abuse the Prime Minister, as the BJP says. But the Saffron Party cannot absolve itself of all blame because 2 of their senior leaders have put them in a tight spot as well. From claiming that Agniveers will be employed as security guards at the BJP offices to saying that they will get jobs as mechanics and drivers, Kailash Vijayvargiya and others too are doing a disservice to India's armed forces. Now the provocations are only intensifying a day after the armed forces made it clear that there will be no rollback of the Agnipath scheme. It is the progressive reform that this country and our forces needed, and they've taken a clear stance since yesterday. And that very message was echoed by the Prime Minister as well. In 2 days, the Prime Minister has sent an unambiguous message that reforms are meant to put the country on the right track. He may not have spoken about the Agnipath scheme itself, but the context of his comments were not lost on anyone. Listen in.
पिछले साल मुझे डिफेंस कॉम्प्लेक्स के लोकार्पण का भी अवसर मिला था। हमारे देश का दुर्भाग्य है कि बहुत सी अच्छी चीजें, अच्छे उद्देश्य से की गई चीजें, वो ऐसी राजनीति के रंग में फंस जाती हैं।
कई फैसले, कई रिफॉर्म तात्कालिक रूप से अप्रिय लग सकते हैं, लेकिन समय के साथ उन रिफॉर्म्स का लाभ आज देश अनुभव करता है। आज हम देश के युवाओं से कह रहे हैं कि सरकार ने जो वर्ल्ड क्लास सुविधाएं बनाई हैं, इनमें अपने विजन को, अपने आइडिया को टेस्ट करें। केंद्र सरकार युवाओं को हर जरूरी प्लेटफॉर्म दे रही है।
Both the centre and the armed forces have made multiple outreach attempts to douse this Agnipath fire. But the opposition is unconvinced and continues to provoke. Unfortunately, the opposition is spending all its muscle and mind space to attack the centre rather than actually talking about the facts as far as the criticism on the Agnipath program goes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the legitimate question on the news tonight. Is Rajniti eclipsing reform? That's the question, and that's the debate. Forces first forever. That's the hashtag and the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining the debate this evening, Gaurav Bhatia, national spokesperson of the BJP, Mohandas Pai, chairman of Aryan Capitals, Sushant Sareen, senior fellow at the ORF, Dr. Kakoli Ghosh Dasdidar, member of parliament and spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, Jasmine Shah, vice chairperson of the DDC. First to you, Tehseen Poonawala, I want to ask you, is this a regular feature for the Congress party when they don't have an argument? They just come down to plain abuse it. And right now, I think the issue is Agnipath scheme. Why is the Congress? I mean, look at the tweet put out by the former Home Minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram. He's also said, you know, that here are barbers in the making, here are drivers and guards, security guards in the making. Is that how you talk about our Agni Veers? People who are going to serve the nation and be part of the Indian army? Is that the reason why the Congress party's representative also called the army chief earlier Sadak Ka Gunda? And is that why the Congress party sought for proof of the surgical strikes and also wanted a proof of how many people were killed in the Balakot strikes? I want to ask you, the entire tri-services chiefs have come out and given details, yet the Congress wants to just use this opportunity to somehow politically score a brownie point and force a rollback. I want to ask you, is this something that's going to help this country?
Namaskar, Navika ji. Namaskar to all my fellow panelists, and namaskar to all your viewers. To your question, I'll divide it into 3 parts, and let me begin with the last part. Should the Congress party or the opposition, the united opposition, ask for a rollback, and will it help the country? Yes, it will help the country. It will save our country. Because I say this with utmost responsibility and all responsibility at my command. The Honorable Prime Minister and the present Union government is perhaps in cahoots with enemies of our state to take our country down a track where it is going to destroy the sovereignty of our country. So rolling back the scheme is extremely important. The Agnipath scheme is a part to put our youngsters' future in the Agni and burn away their dreams. And there is no greater disappointment than your dreams getting burnt. I have 3 very specific questions for my friend Gaurav Bhatia ji from the BJP. If you can answer them very specifically, no if, no but. Gaurav ji, Question number one, the Honorable Home Minister and the Honorable Defence Minister and various ministries of the Government of India have come out and said that there will be a reservation for our Agniveers from the Agnipath scheme. Gauravji, as you're aware, that there already exists a reservation for people who have served in the armed forces. Therefore, my very specific question to you, sir, is this reservation above the reservation already given to our brave soldiers, or is it a new reservation? If this is a new reservation, does it exceed the 50% ceiling set by the Honorable Supreme Court? If it does not exceed the 50% ceiling, who are you going to withdraw from the reservation that already exists? Point number one. Point number two, Gauravji, which is again a very specific question. The 25-75 ratio that you have thought about, what is the plan to ensure, A, that there is no unionization, political pressure, or there is no other means by which there is competition to take the 75 in? Because in any regiment, there has to be fraternity. With this 25-75, there will be competition between the four people to get selected, and instead of unity, there will be fights in the regiment. How have you thought about this? And my third and very specific question, do you condemn what Kailash Vijayvargiya and the Honorable ex-MOS Home and now Minister of Culture, Krishna Reddy, said that Agniveers are being trained to become barbers, drivers, and chowkidars at the BJP office? Yes or no? Three specific questions. Let the country know. Please answer the constitutional
First, will you regret the statement and the tweet by Mr. P. Chidambaram, which says exactly the same thing? Will you
Mr. Chidambaram,
will you express regret on his tweet?
Mr. Chidambaram said that sarcastically. Mocking what the BJP said. Yes,
oh,
what the BJP
how do you know that
Vijayvargiya
didn't say it sarcastically?
Because Mr. Vijayvargiya, and you may please play the tweet.
You're peeping into people's minds now.
No, I'm not. I'll give you an answer to that if you do allow me. Thank you. Mr. Vijayvargiya in front of the camera said people who pass Agnipath and Agniveer scheme, he will recruit them as watchmen for the BJP head offices. Mr. Chidambaram took a dig at that. There's a difference between the two, ma'am. There's an absolute difference. You know it, I know it.
Well, there's a difference between the two. Mohandas Pai is shaking his head. Mr. Mohandas Pai, difference between the two, says Tehseen Poonawalla. Is he the latest certification authority?
Navika, I'm so surprised that the Congress has such brilliant, well-thinking people who got a good track record. They keep on abusing the government, making wrong statement, using abusive languages always, making some very silly statements. People of this country are watching them. Do you think the voters like this? Do you think the voters are going to vote for them? Not remember what they're saying. All these insults, abuses, people will remember that. When the time comes for casting the vote, they're not going to cast vote for the Congress. The Congress has to make amends, tell the people what they stand for. Today, the sad truth is, apart from these abuses, nobody knows what the Congress stands for. It's a great party with brilliant people. The country needs an opposition, but it's going downhill and only abusing the government, abusing Prime Minister Modi. Whenever they abuse Prime Minister Modi, he becomes more popular because people are standing up for him. If you want to counter like an opposition, counter with data and facts, making such silly statement like Chidambaram did, threatening statement, abusing Prime Minister Modi, calling him a Hitler, is not going to carry you anywhere. It's only going to destroy your reputation and hurt you when it comes to voting. All these young people are protesting. They're not going to vote the Congress because they know what the Congress stands for. They're very angry and upset.
No, you've had your turn. You've had your turn, Tehseen Poonawalla. Just have a glass of water while I get in Jasmine Shah, because you made a statement that there. 1 minute, calm down. The debate has just begun. The debate has just begun. Everybody needs a turn to speak first. I can't hand it to Congress. See your numbers in Lok Sabha and in Rajya Sabha and then decide the time that you should take.
Absolutely.
Mr. Jasmine Shah, I want to ask you, Tehseen Poonawalla made a very tall claim and said that the united opposition wants a rollback of this Agnipath scheme. Number one, question to you. Are you part of the Congress party's united opposition? And number two, do you think there should be a rollback of this scheme?
Navika, I'm not sure what this united opposition is. The day this scheme was announced, it was very clear that this is toying with the future of our country's youth, and it is toying with the future of our country's security. And Aam Aadmi Party was the first party to say that this scheme uncategorically needs to be rolled back. There was a time in this country where the slogan Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan used to resonate in the hearts and mind of every person of the country. Unfortunately, under BJP's regime of PM Modi, the farmers have suffered uncountably, and today the Jawans are crying. Their future is being thrust into dark. Each Jawan prepares for 2 years, 3 years. That is the only hope that they have for an economically secure life and for a lifelong respect as an army person. They want to serve their nation for the rest of their lives. And here you are saying that you are no good for us after 4 years of service. Only some 20-25% will be allowed to continue. What kind of nonsense it is? And you see the kind of protests that have erupted spontaneously in all parts of the country. Navika, it is clear that the youth of this nation have lost complete faith in whatever the BJP government is saying. And it is understandable, because from the day the scheme has been announced, BJP and PM Modi are talking at the youth. They are not trying to talk to the youth. There is no conversation happening. There was no conversation that happened before this kind of a mega reform, which has not been happening for decades. And even today, there is no negotiation, no conversation. Every day they are giving dhamkis. Today what a BJP MLA in UP said. They said that every youth who is protesting against this scheme is a jihadi. Yesterday, the BJP General Secretary said that we will hire you as security guards. Is this one insult after the other? Are the youth going to sit down and just listen in? No, they will protest. It is their democratic right to protest. So absolutely no doubt this scheme needs to be rolled back. A conversation needs to be had with the youth of this country, bring them to the table, give them respect, earn their confidence, and then bring in reforms.
Gaurav Bhatia, have the communication lines snapped? That's the charge by the opposition.
Navika, first I would like to very pointedly say that dissent, disagreement is welcome in democracy. But something that I as a citizen and none of the citizens would take, what are those? Let me spell it out. One, when you start casting aspersions on the integrity of our armed forces and you say that RSS will dictate terms, I take a strong objection to that, Navika, because I believe as a citizen, my armed forces will never ever compromise on the integrity of the country, be it the selection process or guarding the country. So the Congress party, their official spokesperson is not here, should apologize. Second, if you disagree with us on this program, I will highlight the advantages to the youth, to the country and to the army. I think a good debate would be that there is a rebuttal on merits, and Tehseen, who is a sympathizer of the Congress, gives me only 3 reasons why this scheme is deficient. Third, when the Youth Congress tweets, and I have that tweet, Navika, in my hand, and they say that we are protesting because ED is questioning Rahul Gandhi. Now this protest, which turns violent, takes a citizen's life, our public property and railway is burnt, abuses against the elected Prime Minister, comparing him to Hitler. Is this right, is what the nation is asking. And I will tell you, Narendra Modi ji has been taking historic decisions, because this is not about petty vote bank politics. One rank, one pension, National War Memorial, ensuring that the defense equipment is made in India, and now this again, Agnipath, is historic. But I would only like to remind the Congress that when the Jawans needed bulletproof jackets, they were busy buying VVIP choppers. Army chief was called Sadak Ka Gunda. And Rahul Gandhi, why not take action against people like Subodh Kant Sahai and many others who are calling our future Agniveers as killers? Navika, do you think a youth who even serves in the armed forces for a day can ever take up arms against the country, can be a supari killer? My heart says no. And that is why this strong, opposition to the comments that have been made so far.
Kakoli Didi, 1 minute. Kakoli Didi, I want to ask you. There can be a scheme that is a reformist scheme which shakes the way the army has been functioning, and it brings up a new blueprint for change. And many people can have reservations, opposition, ideas, suggestions that come in. But do you think in a democracy we have to be so shrill as to make everything personal? Because nobody has come out and said that these are the changes that you want. These are the specific things that should be done to improve on the scheme. The entire criticism has gone down as, oh, they are so autocratic, oh, they are like Hitler. You know, that kind of conversation that comes in. So I want to ask you, the fact that there are different countries that follow a similar model. They also have this 4-year tenure for people coming into the armed forces. The fact that the pension bill of the army is rising and something needs to be done. The fact that there are reforms that are required. We had similar opposition in 1991 when liberalization was being done. We had similar opposition when the telecom licenses were being given. Whenever there is a new idea, there's bound to be some opposition to it. But is this opposition really to improve upon the system that is being created, or is it only to take political brownie points at the government that's doing it?
I agree completely with you when you say that there should have been some discussion. My question is, why wasn't there any discussion during the last parliament session? There has to be discussion. The opposition stands like a watchdog, might be less in number, but there are intelligent people, there are experienced people with whom this should have been discussed. I agree with you. Secondly, All India Trinamool Congress believes in peace, and we don't support this kind of vandalism. It is deplorable. But if you consider the state of the nation at the moment, the employment has gone down so drastically that the labor force participation over the last 2-3 years is less than 40%, which is much less than even Bangladesh. And that has happened in the regime of the present government. 25% of the youth in the age group of, say, 15-16 to 22, they don't have any scope of employment, they don't have any job. There are certain people, certain youth, sections of the youth who undertake rigorous training in their home states, in their own vicinities, and they want to join the army. We respect the army because the army protects the nation. And like you said, that there are many countries who are having similar models. Well, no country possibly in the world has 22,000 kilometers of international border surrounded by countries which are not so friendly. India has. So when you have to take in these people who will guard the nation and us, the citizens, then their training has to be perfect. It is known that to complete
Can I respond, Navika?
It takes 4 years. But here they are being trained for 6 months. So they're not getting proper training. And on the 4th year, they are left loose to become Darwans in the BJP office or become plumbers. So their training is incomplete, and this is being done too because of the economic state of the country. They will have no rank, they will have no pension. Just to avoid paying them proper money, and there is a crunch of finances. Government has taken this, which we don't support. We don't support this kind of training in which they lose their job after 4 years. Only 25% of them are going to be taken in, 75% are going to be left.
All right, Gaurav Bhatia wants to rebut the charges made by you. Gaurav Bhatia, to you first before I get in Sushant Sareen.
You know, ma'am, first of all, coming from a party spokesperson whose chief was afraid because there was a routine patrolling of our armed forces in the state of West Bengal, and she cried foul and she said there is a political coup that is being planned by the army. You know, please introspect, reflect. But your point on discussion, ma'am, everybody actually believes the army. There have been widespread consultation with all the army chiefs. And let me tell you, this was pending since 2000. There is a Kargil committee report and nobody implemented it earlier. Now it is being implemented. So you are not right there also on facts. And these are the numbers, ma'am, since you are very worried about employment. The unemployment rate in West Bengal, according to the latest number, is 5.8%. In UP, it is 3.1%. Uttarakhand, 2.9%. Gujarat 2.1 and Karnataka 4.3. And let me also now give you the number of the advantages that are there for the youth. First, they are serving the nation, the biggest advantage. Second, they will get a Seva Nidhi of 11 lakhs after they have completed their service of 4 years and 9 lakh as salary during the 4-year tenure. Third, 25% will be absorbed in the cadre. Fourth, if a person is 10th pass, he would get a 12th pass equivalent certificate after 4 years of service. 5, they have other career avenues in the Short Service Commission, IAS, IPS. And 10% reservation has also been now assured. So 10% reservation in other paramilitary forces. Don't you think these are advantages that should also weigh with the opposition? Don't oppose for the sake of opposition. And I challenge you people to give 3 disadvantages of this very scheme. It's an ongoing process. The government has been flexible, increasing the age from 21 to 23, and also other changes have been made. I think you people should also make some constructive suggestions rather than opposing it. Thank you.
Well, so
this is a one time only. This is a one time, that raising the age by 2 years is a one time effect, not throughout. They should be thinking about it forever.
In light of COVID, ma'am, I give you 7 advantages. Can you just name 3 disadvantages or shortcomings? Maybe your suggestions are constructive. We'll look into it. Give us 3 right away on time now. Let this be the platform for meaningful dialogue.
Yeah, on a formal discussion, not on the TV channel.
No, you give 3 right away. You are taking citizens' lives.
Why
you are
3?
burning railway coaches. You are abusing the Prime Minister. You do not have faith in the army. Give us 3.
I can give you 30, but not on this platform. There should be a formal platform.
Navika, look at this. She can't even give 1. She can't even give 1.
I can give you 30. I don't want to waste Navika's time.
Stands exposed.
Ma'am,
so give us 3.
Ma'am, you are saying there is no communication, there is no exchange of ideas. Well, you should at least till the Parliament session, use this platform. It might be too late then.
So don't stop me. Okay, I will start talking. Don't stop. I wanted to save your time. First, there are so many vacancies in all the 74 departments of the central government. Why isn't the government opening for recruitment in all those civil departments of the government? Why they are not taking all the 100%? Why they are taking only 25%? Now he's disturbing me. I wanted to give you 30 points. Now, why the economic condition of the country is so that there is of no rank, they don't want to pay the army man. They have no respect for the army man, and they don't want to pay the army man the proper fees. That is why the 11.47 lakhs that they are planning is going to be actually deducted from their salary every month over the period of 4 years and given it back to them. Why this government is not having discussion regarding this before taking the decision of employing them? Why they are letting the people go off after 6 months of training? Proper training takes 4 years. Here they are training for only 6 months. And after the 4th year, 25% youth who will be given this job will be only for 4 years. The 75% armed trained people are going to be on the roads. They are only going to be guarding the Bharatiya Janata Party offices. So this is not the way an army man is. If you have respect for the army man,
valid points stated by Kakoli ji. I want to get in Sushant Sareen. I'm coming to you, Gaurav Bhatia. I'm coming to you. Sushant Sareen hasn't come in. He's also a defense expert. Let me get his questions in, and you can answer them both together.
Please.
Sushant Sareen, are all the fears, all the reservations of the opposition cited just now by Jasmine Shah, Tehseen as well as Kakoli Didi, are all of them justified? Is the government only trying to save on the pension bill? And will this 12 lakh, approximately 12 lakh Seva Nidhi be part of the salary which is taken out? Are there still some myths that are floating around regarding the Agnipath scheme?
So yeah, some part of the 12 lakhs which will be given to these guys after their tour of duty is over will be from their salaries, but an equivalent amount will be deposited by the government into their accounts. So that will make a consolidated sum which will be handed over to them when the tour of duty ends, assuming they are not in part of the army. I wish the MP from TMC had actually given any constructive suggestions. What she, parroted out was the standard, complaints which most people are doing. I think the only valid question was raised by Tehseen when he asked about the reservation policy, and I think Mr. Bhatia and his party and the government need to come out with more clarity on how that particular reservation scheme is going to work. Now, that was valid. But having said that, I find it kind of two things which I found appalling. One, I always thought that we are moving to a society towards a society where dignity of labor is a thing. The kind of disparaging and contemptuous remarks that MPs who talk about not having a casteist society, uplifting the downtrodden, the kind of contempt with which Mr. Chidambaram, the MP from TMC, I think even the Aam Aadmi Party representative, have been talking about what is wrong in being a security guard, what is wrong in being a barber. Are they untermensch? Are they lesser beings? What kind of casteist and upper classist kind of logic is this? But that is asides of the bigger argument. Now, the MP from TMC talks about training. What does she know about the training of soldiers right now? What is the schedule of the training? Does she know that training is a never-ending process as far as the army is concerned? Right now it's 9 months. You can refurbish that whole training and you bring it down, the basic training, to 6 months, after which they go to their units where the training is a constant thing. And you are deployed also and you are trained also. Now, either the MPs who are talking about this and waxing eloquent, I wish they would be better informed on the procedures within the armed forces, about the training procedures, the training protocols. But if it is a pure political opposition and the fact that everybody is treating the army as an employment agency. When Mr. Bhatia asked the TMC MP to name 3 constructive suggestions, her first thing of why are 10 lakhs or I don't know, some number she quoted, jobs left empty. What does that have to do with the Agniveer scheme? Or are we saying now that the army is an employment agency? Then you talk about people want to serve in the army for the rest of their life. Do you know how long an ordinary Jawan serves in the army? It's not for the rest of his life. He joins at the age of 17, 18, he serves for about 15 years, he retires at 32 to 35. Majority of them. Please tell me, what is his employability at 35? Okay, he might be getting a pension, but can you scoff? Now you are members of parliament. We elect you to represent us, and on the principle, no taxation without representation. You are taxing us and you are spending that money. Is there going to be no responsibility on how government expenditure is to be controlled?
Mr. Sareen, whoever you are, I am the member of the Home Standing Committee for 15 years now.
Whoever you are, madam.
As you know, I know better than you. And I'm also a doctor.
But then,
I know how
so please tell me, what is the training protocol? You mean to tell me a Jawan is trained for 4 years? Are you saying a Jawan is trained for 4 years, madam?
Talk specifically regarding the issue and the scheme, or you don't. You are not sitting here just to become an insulting factor. Either you say.
I am talking about the scheme. What is wrong with a 6-month training schedule?
It is not complete.
What is wrong with the 6-month training schedule? What do you know about the training schedule?
Half-baked.
How do you know it is incomplete?
Half-baked. I know because I know the subject.
How do you know it is half? Do you know how long the? Do you know what is the basic training schedule of the US Marines?
I am not here to answer your questions. I am not here to answer your questions. Whoever you are, I am not here.
Then what are you here for? Madam, you are a public representative. We people elect you. How can you be so presumptuous as to say that you cannot answer my questions?
Instead of discussing the scheme, instead of discussing the poor boys who will be admitted at the age of 17.5 and left at large at the age of 22, instead of the vandalism that took place, the deplorable actions that took place, and instead of asking for punishment to those people.
I wanted to ask that, but you took the topic somewhere else, ma'am.
I can bring a privilege motion
1 minute,
against you.
allow me to
You
come in.
cannot
Allow me to
insult
come
a
in.
member of
No, there is,
Parliament. I have been elected
and
by
there
people.
should
Do
be.
motion on what?
There is and there should be no
Privilege motion
attempt,
on what?
no attempt to insult anybody, and nobody is trying to do
is
that,
what
ma'am.
he's doing.
No, there is no attempt to do that. He is a senior fellow at the ORF, and he's
Oh,
a
let
defense
him be.
analyst.
Let him be, but he cannot
He's very well armed to discuss the issue, and that's as a defense expert.
I'm asking you a question. What is wrong in asking you a
He's
question?
asking you a question, ma'am.
Does he know the ratio of death amongst the army people and the paramilitary forces due to combat causes and non-combat causes? He has to take into consideration. It appears from whatever he's saying, his only intention has become to insult the MP. I have been elected by the people, you haven't been. And I am experienced enough to talk about things
I agree with you, which is why I'm saying.
Talk about the scheme.
Which is why I'm saying, what is, you have raised a question on the training schedule. What is the training schedule?
I am not here to answer you. I will
You are
answer
saying
to the
they're
people
trained
who
for 4 years. Please tell me which Jawan is trained for 4 years.
You answer the question Navika asked you. Don't look at me, okay? And don't insult me. You have no right to do that.
Let's not derail the debate. The debate really.
I am not insulting you, ma'am.
Yes, Sushant, let's come back to the major issue. And the issue here is the training period arbitrary at 6 months? And Jasmine Shah, that's where I come in. You know, what was designed 20 years ago as a 9-month training period can be reduced. And we have modern technology and modern ways of doing.
No, not that, Navika. Can I please respond with facts?
Okay.
I hate to interrupt you, but I want to give some facts.
I will come back.
Please.
Maybe the facts
Navika,
can come
I
in
would like to
response to
respond.
Jasmine Shah also.
Yes.
1 minute. Jasmine Shah,
Yes.
what is your major problem with the scheme? Just that it is a new scheme? Well, then that would be called political opposition, because you had a political opposition to the position of the CDS, to theatre command, to Article 370 being removed, to 10% reservation of EWS, to triple talaq, to CAA. Everybody has an opposition to any scheme that comes. But these are political opposition. I see it as that. If you have an opposition to the Agnipath scheme, what are the specifics?
Absolutely, Navika, and thank you for bringing this debate on actual points which are, making this entire scheme a flawed scheme. First and foremost is the aspirations of the youth of this country. So many thousands and lakhs of youth of this country aspire for a lifelong passion to serve in the army. They prepare for it for years and they are willing to give their lives for their country. What is the country telling them by giving them this 4 years kind of an opportunity with no job guarantee after that? That we will post you in Siachen, we will post you in temperatures from -20 to +50 degrees centigrade, be willing to lay down their lives, but you know what, after 4 years, please fend for yourself and your family. It doesn't matter that an MP or an MLA who has served for even a single day gets a lifelong pension. But a Jawan no longer in this country deserves a lifelong pension for willing to give up their lives for the country. Second point, that's the first point. I'll make points because Gaurav Bhatia asked 3 points. I'll give you more than 3 points. Second point, you said that there is some magical skilling and training that is going to be given in this period, after which the entire economy and all the companies and government will lap these people up. Do you know, Navika, what is the placement rate of ex-servicemen who've been trained not for 4 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, with hardcore skills that anybody in the world would respect? 2% is the placement rate. 98% of the ex-servicemen today are going without jobs. The BJP government has no answer for that. Yet you want to, create this kind of an illusion that there'll be a lot of jobs waiting for these people. Number 3, you said that 10% of the positions in paramilitary are going to be opened up for them. You know what are the combined recruitments in paramilitary every year? 13,000, which means only 1,300 jobs are going to be reserved for 37,000 37,000 of these Agniveers who are going to be kicked out by the BJP government. Against 37,000 people, you have 1,300 jobs. And you are saying this is a job security.
Directed to
this is the lie. This is the lie that the youth of these people are seeing.
Even I would like to come into the debate. I've been waiting.
My friend, everybody can come in. I'd love everybody to come in. It's that's why the debate is there. But Gaurav Bhatia has been asked 3 questions. Gaurav Bhatia, first respond to them.
Yes. Yes. So let this segment of your debate be called a myth buster, because I'll be responding with some fact, legal knowledge at my command, best to my ability. Navika, they talk about training first, right? Training is inadequate. Let me give them the model which is followed globally. What is it? We are giving a training of 6 months. But in other countries like USA, there is a training of 8 to 10 weeks. In France, 12 weeks, and in UK, 14 weeks. All these models have been studied by experts and even by the senior ranking generals in the army and other forces. Second, they talk about reservation. My friend Tehseen, you must thank me for a free class on law. You know why? Because in the army and Agniveer, we don't have no reservation on the basis of caste and ST. So there cannot be 50% limit. You have to understand that. And second, there is a thing called vertical and horizontal reservation.
He's asking when they come out. When they come out and they join CAPFs, what have you already exhausted the CAPF reservation levels? Will these people be able to fit in? That's the question he's asking.
Thank you, Navika.
Navika, I understood his question. You can again rewind and then see what he said. He said there is a cap of 50% reservation. So it would be in breach of that. And what I'm telling you, please pay attention, Navika. I'm telling you, in the armed forces, please be quiet. Please be quiet. I'm telling you, please hear me out. All that I'm telling you is that Agniveers, this is a separately constituted class now, and therefore it would not be counted. And second, there is a thing called vertical reservation and horizontal reservation. This is not vertical reservation that it is covered by the 50% cap. Please read that. My third response to them would be, when the TMC spokesperson was speaking, she said the government is not making any contribution. That is also not correct. Please, 50% of the contribution in the Seva Nidhi would be made by the government. So factually incorrect. And last but not the least, she says that if they are trained with weapons, they will come out and they would be menace to society. Any youth who is served in the armed forces even for a day can lay down his life, but will never jeopardize the security of the citizens or the country. This is the kind of faith the Bharatiya Janata Party has in all soldiers and future Agniveer.
Well, let me get in. I'm coming to you, Tehseen. Mohandas Pai has been raising his hand for a long time. He hasn't come in. Just 1 minute. Mohandas Pai, India is the youngest country with the average age of 29, but our army's age 32. US Army average age 27. Russian Army average age 25. German Army 22. The fact is that these reforms are required. The fact is that global models have to be studied. And on the financial side, we have a defense budget of 5.25 lakh crores. Pensions alone take away almost 2 to 2.5. Regular expenditure and pensions take away about 3 lakh crores out of this defense budget. Modernization is left with 1 lakh crores. We have to do something.
Navika, let me say this. This scheme is designed by the armed forces. They know better. They have to fight and defend the country. They are the experts. None of us on this debate are experts in what the armed forces want. They want this, so let us respect their needs and let us make sure they get what they want. They want a young fighting force. They believe this is what is required, and I think we should accept that. None of the people here are experts. None of them are going to fight for the country. None of them are going to see our children. They're only going to come on your TV show and scream and dance and do whatever they do. Point number two, everybody in this country wants to join the army and fight and lay down their life for this country. All of us are patriots. But the vacancies in the army are very few. Everybody cannot get an opportunity. Let us accept that. The army is not the major employer in this country. They're a small employer. They have a minimum number of people they take. Right now, they're saying we have a quota of only 46,000. In this country, 1.5 crore people come into the job market every year. 1 crore get jobs. It is documented. This is a very small number. Now, the question arises, there are some structural issues which have to be decided. First, there is a pipeline issue. People have been preparing for 2 years. They have not got into the army. Don't change the rule. Take care of these people for 2 years and make sure that their aspirations are met. That is the lacuna that has to be done. Second, go from 75% into the army to 50%, 25%. Don't go into 25% in the first year itself, because you have to prove to everybody that you're able to place the 25% in other sectors. Third, give everybody who finishes 4 years a scholarship to get a college degree in any college of the choice across India, like the US Army did after the Second World War in the GI Bill, so they can get a higher education. When they join at 17, they're not going to get a higher education. After these 4 years, let them get a higher education. Fourth, have a stipend for 1 year in case they go for a job, because the private sector is not going to pay 35,000 for a 21-year-old. They may pay 20,000. So for 1 year, give them a stipend of 10,000 rupees. Join with the private sector to tell them, you take them for 1 year, we'll pay 10,000, you pay a salary, train them, and after that you decide. So have a scheme whereby there's an easy way
Very
out for people.
constructive suggestions coming in from Mohandas Pai, and that, Tehseen Poonawalla, is the whole point. That's the point that is lacking in the political criticism that comes in. Without specific recommendations, it is Hitler ki maut, and that doesn't really solve anybody's purpose.
I'm grateful you finally again gave me an opportunity, and I'm going to be very brief, and I'm grateful that this segment is called Mythbusters, because number one, let's burst the first myth. The defense of the BJP spokesperson on your show is the pension bill, as was of Mohandas Pai ji. Let me tell your viewers that the pension bill, out of the total pension for the Ministry of Defense, 47.8% of the pension goes to civilians in the Ministry of Defense. Remove it from the budget, your pension will anyways come down. Number two, I absolutely agree with Sushant Sareen ji that look, the army is not a recruitment scheme. Completely agree. But it is Mohandas Pai and the BJP who have been talking about recruitment. Therefore, I'm forced to put out these numbers. You know, Navika ji, and you have an honorable member of parliament here. For the last 2.5 years, there has been no recruitment in the army, and there are over 2 lakh vacancies in the army. 2 lakh vacancies. This number is also brought down by the Modi government. Why aren't you first filling up those recruitment? You are not doing it simply because you are playing with the please may I finish, with the future of our youth. And the third, where I want to bust the myth that Gaurav Bhatia ji said, whether it is a horizontal reservation, whether it's a vertical reservation, or whether it's a diagonal reservation, as Mr. Modi likes to do, the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court has put a 50% cap. You are not answering the viewers. This reservation that you're speaking about, which the honorable MP also spoke about, does it cross the 50% quota? If yes, how is it constitutionally possible? If no, which caste loses out on? Please be specific. Don't go here, there. Don't twist my words, sir.
Gaurav Bhatia.
I will be very specific. Yes. First of all, Tehseen asked me questions and I did answer them, and it would be nice. He is heavily into litigation also. He can consult some senior advocates. There is no reservation in the armed forces and in the paramilitary forces. And what kind of reservation am I talking about? SC, ST, which is prohibited by the Supreme Court, cannot be above 50%. But there can be quotas, there can be reservation for people who have sacrificed their life for the country, and their wards and their children can get reservation. And similarly, for Agniveers also there will be reservation. Second, you are lying when you say that there has been no reservation in the last 2 years. Why can you not accept that this was the COVID period? The numbers that I will give you, Tehseen should open your eyes. These are the relative numbers. 2013, there were 48,356 people who were recruited in the armed forces. 2019-20, before the COVID period, it went up to 78,621. 60% increase. In pension budget, now it is 1.96 lakh crore. Earlier during the UPA, it was 44,000 crore. almost 4 times. One rank, one pension. When we implemented Tehsil, 42,700 crore has been given to the veterans. 21 lakh army veterans have benefited, and you gave a 500 crore budget in the last year of your governance in 2013-14. This is the difference. Don't question our integrity and our commitment towards the nation and the armed forces. Make some constructive suggestions.
2 years, Mr. Modi could do rallies, go to West Bengal and do Didi O Didi, but could not recruit army men because of COVID.
Come
so
on,
2 years you could do Uttar Pradesh election, you could do West Bengal election, but you can't recruit army men.
Tehseen Poonawalla, you're back to what the Congress's DNA is, which is pointing fingers and using foul language.
Why was there no recruitment for 2 years?
No,
if
but
Mr.
why?
Modi could do rallies, why could there not be recruitment in the army?
Then somebody can turn around and ask you, your party also went for so many rallies. How many seats do they have to show for it? Why don't you give the country an account for that? That can also be asked, but that has nothing to do with the Agniveer scheme. I want to get in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen. One minute. Sushant Sareen, my question...
I just had one question for Tehsil.
No. 1 minute, Gaurav Bhatia, I'm coming. Sushant Sareen, I want to ask you, the question here is, has there been enough time given? Should sweeping changes of this kind have some sort of public platforms where views are gotten, where suggestions are gotten before these schemes are put out? Do you think there is merit in the criticism that has come in on that score in terms of preparing people for a reform that comes in this manner, which changes the way the army has recruited people for so many years in the past?
So, Navika, part of the problem is that very often a reform measure in a particular area, when you start adding extraneous considerations to it, then you have the kind of mess you have right now. Now, as far as the recruitment reform is concerned, the army has been at it for the last 2 years. And just today I was on another program, and a person I respect immensely because he has been a general who has, always been a bit of a dissident. I'm talking about General Raj Shukla, who just retired. He also said that he was part of this process. Now, if a man like him was part of this process, then you can be rest assured that, and he's a very cerebral guy, you can be rest assured that people would have gone to every small extent to see how this scheme works out. Now, the problem is that whenever you bring out a scheme like this, as you very correctly said right at the outset, any reform will lead to some reaction. Now, whether the kind of reaction we are seeing right now, how much of it is genuine, of people who feel that, they've lost a certain chance, and how much of it is orchestrated, I will leave to your investigative reporters to come up with that. But some reaction is expected. The problem, however, is that in an army kind of a setup, where it's a very kind of a closed kind of a setup, you come up with a plan which you think will serve the organization. You do not take into account the larger thing that, army is now become an employment agency. Politicians will jump into the game because they want to get maximum recruitment. They think that a 40,000 or 50,000 recruitment is going to solve their problems of unemployment, which they need to do, which they need to address in other ways, which they haven't addressed. But the army comes up with its suggestion. Now, the moment you put that plan into action, some lacuna will be there. And as Mr. Pai has come up with, I can have some problems with some of his suggestions, but by and large, I think he's come up with some very constructive suggestions. And the government should be open to the idea of taking into account some of these recommendations which are implementable, which are possible, which are feasible, and which do not place a burden on the national exchequer. You cannot afford that you have a very strong defense, but your country is bankrupt. We've seen the example of the Soviet Union, which collapsed despite having a very strong army. We are seeing
the meltdown in Pakistan, where the defense ministry and the defense services take the bulk of the resources and there's nothing left for the rest of the country. I'm sure none of the MPs would want it. I'm sure no politician would want that. You have to have a balance between an effective defense and developmental oriented economy.
And an economically
so you have to
strong
balance
economy.
the two.
Well
if there
said,
are some lacuna,
well said,
address
Sushant
it.
Sareen. Well said, Sushant Sareen. So Jasmine Shah, my question is, and to you first and then to Kakolidi, my question is the same to both of you. When the tri-services chiefs have come out, they put their weight behind this whole recruitment process. Why is it only being seen as a political scheme? Why don't we realize that the defense services is a professional service, and when it takes a call, it takes a decision, then it is for the good of the country? Why are we not convinced? Why are we not limiting ourselves to good suggestions rather than questioning the defense services, the chiefs who have come out and put their weight behind the scheme? Jasmine, to you first, and then I'll ask Kakuli.
Navika, we have never for once questioned either the integrity or the experience of the defense services. And let's not, every time in this country when the BJP regime that is in charge of running the country, if there's a criticism against them, let that not be equated with the defense services. Damika, there are many retired army people, very respected names. Mr. Sushant Sareen gave one name. I can give several names of people who have openly come out and say that there are many flaws in this policy. If at all you wanted to try such a major reform, try it in a small manner, try it in a pilot, see if these youth have any future after these 4 years, because we know there is a problem of unemployment in this country. And if you want to balance budgets, if you want to reduce your fiscal burden, please do it by cutting down your advertisement, cutting down so many other useless expenditures that you're doing as a nation. Why do you have to start by compromising the future of those people, those Jawans who have been laying down their lives for their country? They have been walking away from their family. They don't see their family for years. But you want to start by cutting down and you want to compromise on their aspiration to serve the country for their entire lifetime.
Well, but
give them an
Kakuli
option.
Didi,
If there are better options
the
out
army
there,
cannot be
give them an
treated
option
as an
to go to another
employment
sector.
exchange.
Sorry?
The
Absolutely
army
not.
cannot be treated as an employment guarantee scheme.
No, nobody asked for the army to be treated as an employment guarantee scheme. There are other departments, 77 other departments with a lot of vacancy there. The question is why the central government is not opening up for these. But I will just bring a parallel example. We respect the army. They are protecting us and the country, the nation, in times of strife and in peace. But let me give another small example. The national eligibility test for aspiring specialist doctors in the country was changed, when the doctors also do a lot of service for the society. When the NET test was changed, then it was brought to the parliament and discussion taken, pros and cons discussed, and then it was brought about. So why wasn't this discussed? We have respect for the army chief, the navy chief, and the air force.
All right. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time. 30 seconds to Gaurav Bhatia.
Yeah, Navika, two quick rebuttals. First of all, it's not as if when their youth will complete their 4 years of service, they cannot prepare and sit for the short service commission. The upper age limit is far more. And second, about consultation, 22 defense committee meetings took place. Rahul Gandhi did not even attend, even one of them. So, they don't come for consultation when parliamentary committee is meeting. Then they come on TV channels to say consultation hasn't taken place.
Well, there is clearly communication that needs to be done. Consensus, has it become an idea of the past? Is it only going to be part of historical parliamentary consultations? Is consensus, is consultation at the moment something that's completely out of fashion? But on the other hand, for those who are raising questions, is this language the manner in which they want to do service to the youth of this country? only by making the criticism, by calling names to the Prime Minister? It's something all of us need to think about. Is this the level of public discourse? Well, that's what the opposition also needs to introspect on. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on this very, very constructive debate that we've had today. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Be safe.